GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad and a soul train frame. We fly that flow, spread that gap. No time to nap, no time to nap. Hit that roll, funk and control, bounce that wall, we fly it all, we fly it all. Funky and free, we fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoops got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split that's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all.
That was weird. What's up, fuckers? My name's Aaron. My name's Aaron. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to the show. It's Whoop Wednesday. We're going to be building the Maxx M2 frame tonight. Max from Maxx Frames was super kind. I bought the frame from his Instagram page, MAXX_frames. And he threw in a set of his favorite motors, the HGLRC 1202.5 11,000s, as well as his favorite AIO, which is the JHEMCU G474 ELVTX. And so we're going to do a build with both of those. I'm going to throw a Foxier Razor at it, which is what you're watching right now. The flight footage for the intro there is a 2.5-inch baby turtle, yo. I swapped the 2-inch baby turtle Pro over into this. I finally figured out what I'm going to do. The 2-inch baby turtle Pro frame is going to go... I'm sorry, this isn't the Pro. This is the V7, meant for analog, as lightweight and as small as possible. This is going to be 1S, and the motors I'm going to use are going to be these new BetaFPV 1102 22,000s that make significantly more than the previous ones. They didn't change anything. There's no markings to designate the new ones from the old ones, but I've had 3 or 4 sets of BetaFPV 1102 22,000s over the years, and they all made about the same amount of power. They sent me their Mobula 704 builds, and it came with these on it, and they made way more power than what I remembered. And so I put them on my little test bench setup and spun them up, and they spun significantly more RPM than any of the old 1102 22,000s that I'd had. I've heard this from a couple other people as well. So they've changed. BetaFPV has changed their 1102 22,000. I think they just made them higher KV. You can't tell though, unfortunately. They look identical. And so it's kind of tough because how do you get them, right? Like in theory, if you go to their website and order a set, you'll get the newer, more powerful ones, but maybe not. You know, they could have 10,000 sets of the previous ones that they need to get rid of. This is even worse if you order from like Pyrodrone or GetFPV. You have no telling, you know, how many they've had sitting on their shelf, whether or not they have the new ones or the old ones. So it's a little bit tough, but yeah, I'm going to use these, and it's going to be on the Baby Turtle V7 frame with a with the new. I'm going to try to make this absolutely as light as I can, since it's 1S, and I'm going to use the BetaFPV Matrix AIO that they're sending me, the 5-in-1 Matrix AIO with no front mounting point. That should be the lightest possible AIO. It's got 12 volt. The reason I decided is because it's got 12 amp FETs in it. So the 12 amp FETs will let these 1102s blast full Stank-A-Lot-of-Puss power. And this should be really good. So yeah, I'm going to take off these T-Motor 1002 18,000s. I don't know what I'm going to do with these motors. I have 6 of these motors. So yeah, I'm going to pull these off, swap the motors, and this will be a 1S setup. And to be honest, I'm probably going to end up selling this. I don't know what camera I'm going to put on it, but I don't need, like, you know, I bought a bunch of these Baby Turtle frames in 2.5 inch. Christian Earnshaw sent me the Kayoumini. Maxx Frames sent me the Maxx M2. And you know, I'm sort of moving the electronics between each one, but I don't want to go too crazy doing that because I want to head-to-head a bunch of these, like I always do. At the end of this, though, some of these are going to need to go, right? Like I'm not going to need to have 5 of these 2 and 2.5 inch open prop builds. I'll keep like my favorite 2-inch and my favorite 2.5 inch, or you never know, the maybe I'll like the 2.5 inch more than the 2 inches rigs, and I'll keep an analog and an HD 2.5. We'll see. I have a funny feeling what I'm going to end up doing is keeping a 2-inch analog build and a 2.5 inch HD build. But you never know. These are they're pretty fun to fly analog. As you just saw, I was pretty backed off, to be honest, flying this, because I don't want to mangle these motors. But yeah, what you were seeing is X12 AIO, RC and Power 1003 10,000 kV motors, GEMFan 2512? Yeah, 2512. Really low pitch props, but these are a pretty high kV motor for a 2.5 inch. It ended up having really good power. And then the same camera that I'm going to use on this Maxx build, which is the Foxier Razor. The camera mount here, the TPU sits a little bit too far out, so we had a little bit of purple in the corners. I'll figure that out. But yeah, not bad for a first shot. Oh, and it's got a El Cheapo iFlight CP antenna. BT 3.0, the Tiny Whoop 2S. The first flight file that you saw there was the second half of a Tiny Whoop 300 mAh 2S battery. Then it switched files to a Tiny Whoop 450 mAh big ass 2S battery. It ran over 5 minutes on that 450, and like I was getting bored halfway through, and I was just like hammering on it to try to kill the battery the rest of the way. It was also crazy dark out. Like it was, I could not have even remotely flown one of the HD builds. It was that dark out. And so yeah, that's what you were watching. I was digging this, man. I am really surprised. It was hard to tell because it was so dark. I was mainly just trying not to destroy it. But I'm pretty happy with this. I thought that it was going to be too floaty, like a 3-inch toothpick, but it just isn't. It's absolutely more floaty than the 2-inch setups, and there's a chance that I think maybe the 2-inch setups are sort of the sweet spot at this all-up weight. I have a feeling that this 2.5 setup with HD and bigger motors than these 1003s is going to be really, really, really nice. We'll see. Those are going to be the next couple of builds coming up here. The Bando Turtle and the Kayoumini are coming up next. I just got to figure out electronics for the two of them. So yeah, lots of cool stuff happening. I also need to get some propellers. Unbelievably, I don't have like the best of the 2.5-inch prop for these kind of setups, which is the Gemfan Hurricane 2520. I don't know how or why I don't have any of these, but I don't. So I need to get it. Oh, they're sold out on RDQ. Okay, so I'm not getting them from RDQ. I'll end up getting them from Pyrodrone because they have them in stock. So yeah, I'm also going to be shopping around a little bit for motors. I want to try to find motors that are good for a 2.5-inch prop. I learned today that these 1003s are shockingly good. 1003, 10,000 kV on these really low pitch tri-blades made really good power. It was so dark out that it was kind of hard to tell. But I was pretty happy. I'm excited to back this with some of the 2-inch stuff to really start kind of comparing them. But this was fun. I had a blast flying this around. It was totally just like, you know, maiden and then second battery. I would have had more time, but I forgot that I had. So these electronics came out of this setup, which has these 1002 18,000 kV motors. And I'd had these motors, I'd had the Betaflight motor limited down to 75%. And so I was in a hurry to get this all put together before I lost light. And the initial setup was on these old RCX 1003 7800 kV motors. And I put it up in the air and it had like no power. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. They're a really old motor. Square magnets, you know, kind of like weak magnets. And I'm like, all right, I came rushing inside. I actually got it stuck in a effing tree too, and I had to get the extendable stick to poke it out. And so I came running inside and I swapped it over to these 1003 10,000s. And then I put it back up in the air and it still had no power. And I'm like, what the hell? And it just dawns on me immediately. I'm like, the motor limiting set on this, isn't it? And sure enough, the motor limiting is sitting there at 70%. So tomorrow, I'll put this back up in the air on the 1003 10,000s, get a feel for it there. And then I'm going to put it back onto these RCX motors. And I think it might be okay on those on these props, on these 2520s. I'm pretty confident that these RCX 1003s will be pretty decent, which is kind of amazing because I've had these motors for about 7 years. And I haven't known what to do with them. I have 5 of them too, so I can bang one of them up and still have a replacement. And so, yeah, I'll get some feedback on 1003, current 1003 with a really high KV, 10,000, for a 2.5-inch prop versus 1103 at a more normal KV. It seems like 8,000 KV on 2.5-inch tri-blades is kind of the sweet spot. So yeah, that'll be pretty slick. I'm excited. And then I'll back that up with a little bit of 2-inch. The only 2-inch that I have set up at the moment is the HD one. That's fine. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do about a flight controller on this. Maybe I'll just throw an X12 into it because I want something that's both. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm doing the BetaFPV. That's right. I'm doing the BetaFPV AIO in this. I don't know what flight controller I'm doing on the Kayoumini or on the Bando Turtle. So yeah, I got to kind of figure that out. At this point, we'll have tried the JHEMCU AIO. The Flywoo AIO is in this one here, thanks to Frank Nicholas. You can see the white PCB there. We know the X12s, we know the X14. I feel like there's one more AIO out there that I need to test. This will be great because we can, get a feel for each one of the AIOs. Look, like AIOs either blow up or they don't. Nowadays, they're all pretty good, so I don't think we'll be able to tell a difference between any of them, but let's find out. So yeah, this will be slick. The HGLRC 1202 8000 seem to be a really popular motor. We'll be able to try those. We'll get some feedback on those. I think I'm kind of done with the Happy Model 1103 11000s. They're just not durable enough. And I'm hearing that from other people too, that these are just not a durable 1103. So yeah, that's some good feedback. We'll keep going. I am looking for motors that are on the motor plugs, especially for this build. And then I'm good on this one. The 1102, the BetaFPV 1102s are going to be perfect for this 1S 2-inch baby turtle. Yeah, this one, if the RCX motors don't work out, very amazingly, the RCX motors have the plugs. And here's what's even weirder: this wire length is like perfect for this 2.5-inch build. It's like RCX knew 8 years ago that we would be flying with stuff like this. It's kind of wild. And so yeah, I'm looking for the plug based motors. I know that BetaFPV has the 1104 lava that's on plugs. I don't know if I'll need an 1104. Maybe. I mean, for a 2.5-inch propeller that's more pitchy, which I do want to start trying out. There's like the Emax 2.5s, and then there's these GemFan 2520s. I might need an 1104, but I want to try them out on this. I have the Emax. Well, these are the 2-inch Emax on the floor somewhere. I have they're back there. I have the 2.5-inch tri-blade Emax. What are they called? They're not Blur. They're I forget the name of the props, but yeah, I've got a bunch of different prop options. So this will be great. I figured a lot of this stuff out forever ago, but motors and props have changed quite a bit, and so it's really good to be diving back into this and figuring it out. I can make incredibly educated guesses because I know what works on 3-inch builds. I now know what works on 2-inch builds. And so we're just going to kind of go right in the middle, which means 1203, 1303. 1103 is probably on the smaller side, the smaller and lighter weight side. And then 1104 will be on the big. So the brackets here for motors for these 2.5-inch props are almost certainly going to be from, I'll do it this way, from the low end 1103, and then in the middle 1202 and a half, 1203, and then 1303 and 1104. Those are going to be on the high side. If you go outside of that group of motors, you're either going to have a motor that's a little bit too small, and so you're going to have like kind of a long range setup. If you go bigger than those sizes, it's actually better to go smaller than bigger, because if you have a motor that's too big for the amount of power that you're asking of it, you're just dragging around extra weight. There's no and extra all up weight, but also extra rotational weight. Which kills the response time. And so, yeah, it's always better to go slightly on the smaller side. But it seems like there's a lot of motors that are going to work here. I was really impressed by these. Oh, 1003. 1003 is actually going to be on the smaller side, which is 1003 versus 1103. Very, very, very similar. Yes, it's 9% more stator width, but the stator height is really doing the majority of the work. I can almost guarantee you that if I put these 1003 10000s on this GemFan 2520 propeller here, that they would start to fall apart. This 2512 prop, 12 pitch is really light, and the prop itself is really like physically light, and so the prop is doing a lot of work. I also tried the HQ biblades. HQ, what the hell are they? T65 millimeter biblades, and they were not balanced at all. They were a mess. I put these GemFan 2512s on, and all was right with the world. So yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be doing biblades on these anyway, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know if there are any good 2.5-inch biblades, because those HQ T65s are like the newest, most recent of the biblades. Yeah, super sad that they're not balanced, because they would be a nice option for like as much efficiency as possible. But yeah, that's I'll give them one more try. I think I left them out, but yeah, not a good first sign. Never a good sign when you take a propeller off that's causing all kinds of vibrations and put another propeller on, and all of those problems go away, right? Like that's pretty damning. I will give him one more shot though on a different set of motors, just because, yeah, it's always nice to have a biblade option in case you need to get like mega runtime out of it, or if you're flying in a lot of wind and you don't want the wind to affect it much, a biblade is going to help out with that quite a bit. Maybe I did leave them out. This is my big old bag of 2.5-inch props. You guys know this bag. We weighed all of these a couple of weeks ago. There they are, and put all those weights into that spreadsheet that you lovely patrons that support me every month have access to, which the other day we put all of the 2-inch prop weights into as well. CiottiFPV.com is where you're going to find a link to my Patreon. You can join for as little as $3 a month. That's like 20 cents per live stream. Guarantee you'll learn more than 20 cents worth of things tonight. Just think. Have I told you not to buy something and then you didn't waste $50 on it? Look a brother up. Yeah. That's all that I got in here. There's not a ton of great 2.5-inch props. Avan Rush. That's the Emax 2.5-inch prop. This is the incredibly durable 2.5-inch prop. It's also an incredibly heavy 2.5-inch prop. And so the GemFan 2512s are the lightweight tri-blade option, it seems, and then the GemFan 2520 is like kind of right in the middle. Yeah, again, I'm blown away that I don't have any of those GemFan 2520s, but I will be getting a bunch, and we will give them a shot. So yeah, some cool 2.5-inch stuff coming. I'm excited. I'm really excited to fly this during the day so that I can see the scraggle. I was like, the whole time I was flying it, because I didn't want to wreck these motors. These 1003 10,000 kV motors are not really for this rig, and so I really didn't want to bang one of them up. So yeah, I think these motors are going to be better for a 2-inch build. But again, I was blown away at how good these were. And how good this build was, right? Like, didn't mess with the PID tune from when it was in the 2-inch build. Literally just like threw it together as quickly as I possibly could. And it was just jamming out there. I can definitely tell that when I hammer the throttle, throw it up in the air, and chop the throttle, it slows down really quick. The 2-inch builds being a smaller parachute, they carry their momentum a little bit more. But I won't really know until I can like kind of back-to-back 2-inch versus 2.5. Let me actually look real quick. I wonder what the dry weights are between the The HD 2-inch build and this analog 2.5-inch build, I bet you they're almost the same weight. In which case, that'll be a perfect comparison. So the Baby Turtle Pro 2-inch with 04 light is 52.5 grams. This guy set up with analog is, wow, it's lighter, 48.5. But a 4-gram difference ain't bad at all. So yeah, that'll be a pretty fair comparison. And yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. I'm actually going to go put these over on the coffee table, which is how I remind myself when I come down here in a sleepy haze what I'm doing for the day. So let's just put these here. Hopefully none of you guys have any questions about them, because I'll have to walk back across the room to grab them. Yeah, I'm going to try them on these bi-blades. But boy, on those 2512s, it's good. It's got all that RPM. I've heard people complain about the 2512s not having enough pitch on like a 7 or 8,000 kV motor. I can totally see that, but on like a 10 or 11,000 kV motor, yeah, plenty of power. It seemed. It was, again, kind of hard to tell because it was pretty dark. I was just trying not to die, but hey. In the chat, Ryan was first. Flakedelic, Break Faded, Fizz, B. Kirk, Sleepy CBR, Mr. Clean, Green Thumb, Robert Cyrus, Capital C, McShaky, Frank Nicholas, Frank the Dr. Nicholas, Green Thumb, Robert again, Andrew Taylor, McShaky, Jeremy Flies FPV, Nyafu, hey Ryan, McShaky. We're going to leave it there. If you want the gangly to read your name, get in early, or just type CiottiFPV, and I'll read your chat comment. Break Faded says, my Air 75C showed up today. Hands down the best 75 on the market by a mile. What are the motors on there? Robert Cyrus says, how do I show up as a patron member in here? YouTube has no affiliation with Patreon. Discord does, though. Over on Discord, well, when you sign up as a Patreon, when you sign up for Patreon, you'll automatically get access to the Patreon only section of the Discord channel. And you'll be able to see a text channel called Welcome to the Gangly Gang. In there are instructions how to click the thing in Patreon to connect it with Discord, and then you'll show up in a different color over on Discord, and you'll have the full access over there. Denzel the Turtle says, hey friends, and that CiottiFPV guy. Whoop Fox says, do you think 1203 will be too much for the Mini? 1203 is going to be... So the difference between 1003 and 1103 is pretty insignificant. And so then going up to 1203, it's not going to be a massive difference, I don't think. They're just going to run... What's the big thing about bumping up the stator width is going to be that it's going to run cooler. So like the 1203, you're going to be able to just hammer on. If you want something that you can put the nose down and fly at like 50-60% throttle, the whole battery, just like ripping around at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, that's what the 1203 is going to do really well. It's wider, so it's going to have more of the motor in the airflow, and it's going to stay really, really, really cool. If you want to save a little bit of weight and you're not going to fly that fast, you can drop down to 1103 or even 1003, it looks like. Was working totally fine. I was not like hammering on that thing. Or if you want to pick up a heavier battery, if you're going to do one of these builds on a heavier frame like the Kayoumini, and you wanted to drag around like a 2S 550 mAh battery, that's what the 1203 is going to do really well. Similar to like a Cinewoop motor, 1203, 3, 6, 9, 12. That's a motor that's 4 millimeters wide for every 1 millimeter of motor height. That ratio, 4:1, is getting into the territory of like almost a Cinewoop motor. Not quite, because like when you look at a 2306, a very popular 5-inch freestyle motor, 2306, 6, 12, 18, 24. So a 2306 is almost 4-to-1, and it's a wonderful freestyle motor. One of the greatest things about it as a freestyle motor is it stays really cool. Stays cooler than the 2207s, right? 2207, 7, 14, 21. 2207s are like 3-to-1. Totally fine freestyle motor, but if you're really pushing a lot of juice into that motor, it's going to get hotter. The 2306 is going to be a more... I always forget this word. There's this word that I just, for years, I forget it every time. Every time you hit the throttle, it's going to be cool, and you're going to get the same amount of power every single time. Not reliable. I always want to say the word reliable, but it's not. Repeatable. It's not the word, but it's going to be a motor with total like repeatability. Every time you hit the throttle, it's going to be the same temperature because it's wider. It's a 4-to-1 ratio. But it's not going to make as much power per gram that it weighs. A 3-to-1 motor is like super optimized to make as much power as possible with the motor being as light as possible. If you go down to a 2-to-1 motor, you better be flying at the Olympics, the Winter Olympics too. The motors on Shaggy's sub 250 build are 1207. That is like that's worse than 2-to-1, but he's flying it in the goddamn snow and it's fine. It's an RC and power motor. And so that motor here in Atlanta, Georgia, anytime other than the dead of winter is going to get too hot because the motor is too tall and not wide enough. The height of the motor makes a lot of power. The width of the motor makes a little bit of power, but it mainly keeps it cool. And so, yeah, those ratios are super important. A lot of the best performing Cinewhoops that I've ever flown are on motors that are 5-to-1, which is a 21 or a 2004. 2004. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 5-to-1 ratio. This is something that we didn't know early days of Cinewhoops, and it was a tough lesson to kind of learn. Bob Rugi's 2303.5 or whatever the hell it is, 2304, that pancake motor, that was the motor that kind of broke the mold that made us all realize, oh my god, okay, the keeping the motors cool by having it be really wide is magic for a 3-inch setup that's dragging around 120 plus gram GoPro, right? And so, yeah, there you go. 1203 is going to be very similar to a 2306 in that it's like dead reliable. It's super predictable. That's a good word for it. Super predictable. It's always going to be cool. Every time you hit the throttle, you're going to get the exact same amount of power. And that's great, man. That's why I run 2306s on my... That's one of the reasons. The other reason is that I don't need as much power as the 2207 gives. One of these freestyle 5-inch builds is on the Fly 533 2207, and it just makes so much power. It's like it's hard to fly because it makes so much power. And so that's another part of this, right? Like an 1104, if I was to do an 1104 on the Kayoumini or on one of these 2.5-inch baby turtles, I think it's actually going to have too much power. I think it's too big of a motor, and when the motor has too much power, you lose a lot of throttle resolution. And so like when you're trying to fly low to the ground, you're going to be bouncing up and down and up and down and up and down. You're not going to be able to like lock in because every tiny little movement that you make on the throttle is going to make a big increase in throttle, increase in power rather. So yeah, you got to be careful. You don't want motors that are too big or too high of a KV. Reaper says, for the Kayoumini, I bought the HGLRC 12 amp AIO. That'll work fine. 12 amps per channel. That's 48 amps total. You're not gonna have a motor and prop combo that can do 48 amps. Brandon says, those are my favorite 2.5-inch props, the GemFan Hurricane 2520-3. Yeah, I've been seeing really good things about them. I'm excited to get my hands on some. Reaper also says, the Happy Model 1103 are trash, bent a shaft first crash. They're not trash. They run totally fine on the prop guarded rigs, but you don't want to bolt them to a carbon fiber frame, that's for sure. On the plastic frames, though, they're really good. They're on the 2-inch 04 light carrying whoop up in here, they were brilliant. And I crashed the shit out of that thing with those motors on there, and they were totally fine. It's a plastic frame. When you crash it, the frame's going to flex. The guard is going to, take a bunch of the energy. And so they make a lot of sense for that kind of a setup, but they don't make sense for these carbon fiber frames where they're going to be mounted rigidly. And when we crash into stuff, all the energy goes directly into the motor. There's nothing to help the motor out. So, yeah. Capital C says, GEPRC makes an 1104 7500. Nice on 2S, but it rocks on 3S. Yeah, an 1104, that's where we start to get into like the 3S world. I think that's going to... These 2.5-inch rigs are extremely lightweight. If these were like removable arm frames, beefier frames, dragging around like the bigger 3S batteries, I think an 1104 would be a good choice. But for these builds, the Baby Turtle, the Maxx M2, the Kayoumini, these are extremely lightweight frames that are mainly meant for AIOs, which are very lightweight. I forgot to mention something the other night when I was reviewing the Kayoumini. It is the only of these frames that has 20x20 bolt pattern, which is awesome. Nobody's ever going to use it, myself included, but I absolutely love that it's there. The reason why you won't use it is that, like, if you go 20x20, you're going to have a separate ESC and a separate flight controller, and there's not going to be room for that in here because you're going to have a separate ESC, a separate flight controller, a separate VTX, and a separate receiver. And you're not going to be able to package all that into this frame. That's what my 3-inch frame is more set up for. It's got more room in the butt. It's got higher deck height. It's more meant for that kind of setup. CiottiFPV says GemFan Flash 2540. So that is going to be one of the propellers that I try on the RCX motors, because the RCX motors have T-mount screw holes in them. So I've got my bag of, well, actually I've got a set of the 2540s sitting right here with screws in them waiting to be put on there. So that'll be fun. Wayne Hunter with a $5 super chat. He says, trying my new Matrix. Hang on one second, wait. All right. He says, trying the new Matrix on the Meteor75 Pro frame, canopy, and props. So I need motor suggestion for good speed power without sacrificing performance. Meteor75 Pro frame, canopy, props. If you can get your hands on the new generation of these BetaFPV 1102 22,000s, they're going to be perfect for that. But like I said earlier, there's no way to tell. In theory, if you order these motors from BetaFPV, they'll send you the new ones, but maybe not. If I was to do that, I would put in the notes of the order, hey, all the content creators on YouTube have been sent a new version of this motor that makes significantly more power than the old version. Please make sure that you send me that new version of the motor. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. You don't have the old motors to check them, right? So yeah, that's kind of tough. Your other option for a motor that's going to make really good power is the GEPRC 1002 25,000. You're going to motor limit that down a little bit. You don't quite need 25,000 kV for the 1.8-inch props that are going to run on that Meteor75 Pro frame. If you fall in love with those motors, though, you could swap that frame out, right? For like less than $10, you can get a regular 1.6-inch prop frame and a couple of sets of GemFan 1610s. And those GEP-RC 1002 25,000s are absolutely absurd. They're so good on that setup. And if you did that, you would lose the build would lose a lot of weight. That Meteor75 Pro frame is just outrageously heavy. You'll be able to run the new Air 75 V2 frame or the Cockroach 75 Light AF or old reliable Mobula 7 V4 frame. You're also going to be able to run a much more durable propeller. I don't know if you caught it the other day, Wayne, but I mentioned that. So I did that. This is what I put the X14 AIO into, and I used the M80 or M8 frame, and I flew 2 batteries, I think, and I had 3 crashes in the course of those 2 batteries. Every single one of those crashes, one of these 1.8-inch propellers blew up at the hub, and I had to take the walk of shame to retrieve the thing. On the 3rd crash, it managed to blow up 2 of the propellers at once. And so I'm done with the 1.8-inch setups, which is a shame because this M8 or M80 Happy Model frame is really good. But there are plenty of 1.6-inch prop frames that are just as good, if not better. But yeah, there aren't any 1.8-inch props that are durable. These HQ ultralights fly really good, but man, are they fragile. And builds like this, like I want to fly this hard. I want to take chances with this. I want to fly this like I hate it. And when the props blow up every single time you crash, you can't really do that. So this guy's going to get taken apart. I wonder if there are pads under these motor plugs. I wonder if I can direct solder to this thing, because these carbon fiber open prop builds, I'm going to start direct soldering the motors to, because a lot of these motor options that we've got don't have the plugs on them, and they don't have the PCB on the stator. So trying to swap them over to plugs means that you have to splice solder the wires in, which just sucks donkeys. And so, yeah, I'm not going to put plugs onto a non-plug motor. Let me actually see. Happy Model X14. Let's see if we can find a picture of the X14, of the bottom of the X14 without the motor plugs on it. To see if there are some pads down there that are big enough to solder to. On the X12, there are not. There are just the itty-bitty little through holes that the motor plugs jack into. Yeah, Happy Model's got a bunch of pictures here, and none of them are helping us out. What about in images? Nah, this is just going to give me a bunch of trash. Well, maybe when I pull this thing apart, I'll take one of the motor plugs off to see what the situation is down below the motor there. Maybe not, to be honest, though. I don't know. It's there are a couple of AIO options out there that don't have the that don't have the motor plugs on them and do have pads. So we'll see. Wayne, thank you for the support, man. Much appreciated. Nyafu says, the word you're looking for is consistent. There it is. Consistency, says El Chingon. Break Freighted says, the Air 75C has 802 28,000s with GemFan 1614. Wow, GemFan 1614 tri-blade. Oh, that's the new tri-blade. I haven't tried those yet. Yeah. Unfortunately, 1mm shafts with the KB feels very underrated / understated. Yeah, right. So the 32,500 kV Weebleed tree toppers versus BetaFPV 28,000 kV. I'll bet you those motors are turning the exact same RPM, because Happy Model's kV numbers tend to be a little bit high because of the way that they measure kV. BetaFPV's kV numbers tend to be either right on or a little bit low, because they measure kV a little bit differently. And so, yeah, that Air 75 is probably incredibly similar to this 1S, basically Mobula 7 ELRS on the tree topper motors. And this thing flies great. Not quite as good as the 2S setups, but that's cheating. Doubling the voltage is absolutely cheating. B. Kirk says, how much do you think the camera and broadcast system is on those Olympic drones? Mads Tech looked it all up the other day. It's a little over $3,000 for just the the camera is $2,000. The camera is $2,000, I believe it is. And then the video transmitter is a little over $1,000. Wild stuff. I've had all the guys, all like the directors and the producers, and the technical folks from my live broadcast gigs, one by one have been messaging me like, are you seeing this shit? And I'm like, yeah, don't get any ideas, motherfucker. That one drone costs more than my entire fleet and goggles and live broadcast setup. They're like, holy shit, really? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, man. So, but, you know, Dutch Drone Gods, which is Shaggy's company, they're the ones that have been doing all these wild Red Bull videos, right? Like, you know, a build that's $3,000 or $4,000 is, you know, probably not a drop in the bucket, but like, you guys know what I'm saying. And I'm sure that the Olympics pays very well. You know, they're out there working every single day. I'm sure they're making an absolute fortune, as well they should, because they are some of, if not the most talented cinematic pilots on Earth. And live broadcast is next level pressure around athletes. It is, you know, it's their livelihood, right? Like, these athletes, their entire career, their entire life is what they're doing, and their body needs to be 100% healthy for them to be able to perform and do that. And so if you hit one of them and cut the shit out of them, or if you distract them and they fall or slam into something and get hurt, like, that is awful, right? Like, so it's the pressure is pretty unbelievable. But some of us have struggled with crippling anxiety our entire lives and eat pressure for breakfast. So, you know, it's the only good thing about mental illness. Robert Cyrus says, bet the camera system to broadcast live is so much more than the quad build CiottiFPV talked about in the past live shows. Yeah, the motors and AIO and frame are probably all of like $200. That camera that they're running is 4K though. They're sending 4K over the air. That's really, really, really impressive. And then their video system that they're flying through is actually an 04 Lite, which I find to be hysterical. B. Kirk says, sorry, I meant weight, but that is crazy cost. How much do you think the camera broadcast system was? Oh, for weight? They're claiming that rig is sub 250. I don't buy it. I have a feeling it's sub 250. I have a feeling that there's a battery that they can put on it that makes it sub 250. But the way that they actually fly it is probably closer to 300. Just knowing what I know about trying to fly something that's on motor. I fly rigs that are on similarly sized motors, on similarly sized props, covering similar speeds. I don't know how fast the bobsledders are going at the top of the hill where he's chasing them. And he is flying something with no prop guards, which helps. He's not chasing him down the whole hill, so I have a feeling that he's topping out. And so, yeah, I don't know how he could get the performance that he's getting at 249.9 grams. So yeah, I have a feeling that it can be set up for sub 250, and he probably has a battery in his pocket that he could put on there that makes it sub 250. But yeah, in theory, the actual takeoff weight and look, like, it's better to have it's better to have something that flies more confidently and for longer that's 280 or 290 grams than to have something that is absolutely at the dead ass limit and you can only get like a minute and a half of flight time that's 249.9. You know what I mean? Like, it is way safer to have something with some extra runtime that's just a hair over 250. The 250 number is dumb. The origin of that is stupid. It's based in like cannonballs or something. It's a stupid number that doesn't make any sense. And so, yeah, it's kind of silly. It's very silly. El Chingon says, using BetaFPV 1103 11,000s on analog Kayoumini, should I limit output on the motors? Sorry if you already addressed this earlier. Probably. It depends on your all-up weight. It depends on your propellers that you're running. It depends on how much power you want. It depends on how much runtime you want. But what I can say is, if you're doing a tri-blade 2.5-inch prop, you're probably going to want to motor limit those down. It's always safe to just throw a motor limit on there before you fly it. Put it at 80%, fly it, see if it has enough power. If it has enough power, leave it. You'll get more runtime, you'll get more throttle resolution. I always recommend that everybody flies the least power that they can stand, because the less power, the better the throttle resolution. And the better the throttle resolution, the better you're going to look and the more fun you're going to sort of have, because you'll have way more sensitivity to get close to stuff, and getting close to stuff looks cool and feels cool. It's fun to have a really powerful rig and hammer it up 100 feet above the trees, but like, after you do that 20 or 30 times, it's the same thing over and over again. You're looking down at the same ground. It's the same blue sky with white clouds, right? Like, it's I don't know, maybe that's just me. But yeah, FizzPV says, if you're mostly going downhill, shouldn't that help you? And you would need only one run per battery if you had several drones. Maybe. I mean, at like $3 or $4 grand per, I doubt that they have that many of them. And like, you can't really pre-plug in the other battery anyway. So like, you know, typically we will have like a backup and maybe even a second backup, but we won't use them at all, because it's the same amount of time to unplug the battery, pop it off, and then just slam the new battery on there. I have had helpers before at the live broadcast events, and the time difference between the helper like having my backup rig ready to go with the battery strapped down, ready to be plugged in, versus just land it, quick rip it off, is like 10 seconds maybe. Like, because what you got to remember, right, is that you're changing batteries all day long, and so you get really quick at it. And so like, you know, you're changing 50, 60, 70, 80 batteries a day, and these guys are doing it every day. So their flow when that thing comes in to swap batteries is probably like instantaneous. Plus, you know, even if we do identical builds, they always fly a little bit different. And so it's actually a better idea to fly the exact same thing over and over and over again. So yeah. But yeah, you're right. Going downhill is certainly going to help with the speeds that thing is carrying, for sure. Fizz also says, how long is it taking them to run the course? I think a bobsled run is about a minute, but they're only chasing for maybe 10 seconds. They're only picking them up and chasing for like the top bit. If that broadcast system is broadcasting, it is broadcasting 4K, that probably has worse range than the 04 Lite. And big events like that have lots of spectators with their phones hammering away, and wireless mics and other wireless systems on all the static cameras, it's a mess. Like the range that we're used to getting is completely out the window. At Tulsa Tough, by the end of the first day, I think that by the end of the first day, when there were tons of people near the start-finish line, which was only 1 block down from me, I was getting micro failsafes on Crossfire, 1 block away. So straight line of sight, right down the barrel. But the 1 block away at the start-finish line, that's where that's where the noise floor is a disaster. Everybody's phones are hammering away. There's everything, wireless mics. The TV truck is there with satellites and 5,000 antennas on the roof. And so, yeah, the 5-inch stuff that they're doing, chasing the skiers, that's different. It's way more open, but still, they're not chasing these guys down the whole hill. If nothing else, also then that if they chase them all the way down the hill, they got to come back up, and by the time they come back up, they're going to miss the next rider. What they're probably doing is the same thing that the producers do with me, is that they find either one of two things: either a run where they have bad static camera coverage. This is what we do at Anniston, Alabama for the Criterium. Well, it's not Criterium Cup anymore, but it's the Sunny King Crit. And so I cover between turns 2 and 3, which is the worst coverage for their static cameras. They have 1 static camera on 2 and 1 on 3, and it's like a 3-block run in between them. So and these are big boy studio cameras with big, massive zoom lenses on them, but you can only zoom so far. And so I cover that run where, a moving camera is absolutely perfect. Or the other thing, what National Cycling League did with me in Miami, which was really, really cool, is they put me right in the coolest looking area. It was right in front of the Frank Lloyd Wright house. Not Frank Lloyd Wright. Some fashion icon, a very famous house, right in front of the all of the beautiful hotels, like the one hotel in the beginning of Birdcage was right there, and then the start finish line. And so I got to chase out of turn 6, I guess, the last turn. I got to chase under the start finish, which is amazing, because at the end of the race they always take my camera, because why would you not want to watch the leader from 4 feet above them, looking pretty much straight down, to see the gap between first and second place and all that stuff. So they're probably doing the same stuff, right? They're having them run a route in between a certain area where they want coverage, right? We want the coverage right here, and so you just run that route all day long. Having them chase all the way down the hill, that's more of like a Mavic kind of thing, right? And it's what's funny is Tulsa Tough, the Criterium race, they do that. They have a separate crew flying a Mavic looking straight down all day long, and it's so cool. And they run the entire course all day long, just looking straight down, and it's such a cool camera angle. When they cut between that and me, back to me, it is the coolest thing ever, because the straight down really shows the gaps in the riders and all this, and tells this kind of story. And then when they cut to me on their shoulders, you can see more of the kind of details, sort of like in 3 dimensions. It's really, really cool, man. Using FPV in these live broadcast settings it's just the coolest shit ever, man. And as a pilot, it's about as good as it gets. Chasing these cyclists when they explode from 30 to 40 miles an hour, that is an adrenaline dump that I haven't gotten in FPV in a long time. Because you got to keep them framed up, when they do that, when they really stand up and go, they go from 30 to 40 miles an hour in what feels like a millisecond. And they're just gone. They're just out of frame. And so I now have to pitch down to generate more speed. and that makes it even worse. And so like if they're on my camera, if they're playing my camera through the broadcast, I can't do that. And so it's so fucking fun. Like, and so it's basically big hit of throttle and just like immediately think, are there any power lines above me that I'm about to rocket up into? And then you keep it framed up with that big hit of throttle, and then you just, as you're still hammering the throttle, you pitch forward to not go super high. And so it's really cool, like, but it's rad. It's really, really fun. FizzPV says, it's the Olympics. That ain't a cheap gig. Yeah, for sure. I could see having 4 or 5 so you don't have to fly back up. Yeah, you never know. I mean, I'm certain that they have 2. It wouldn't surprise me if they have 3. But beyond 2 or 3, they'd probably be repairing. But you never know. Denzel the Terrible says, it's big international production. They have a shitload of those units on site. Pilots at multiple events with multiple backups and spares. Probably have the CEO of VidUnit Co. on speed dial. VidUnit Co. I believe is the company that makes the camera. I forget. I kind of fast forwarded through Madstech's video the other day. Denzel the Turbo says they're probably making hundreds of thousands in this job. They probably have a lease deal with the company that makes them. Yeah, I as well they should. They're doing unbelievable stuff that will hopefully open up the door for the rest of us that have been really struggling to convince organizing bodies and or venues that FPV is safe and is about as cool as it gets for live broadcast gigs. It's been great to see some concert venues and the folks that are flying that world of live broadcast. It's not really live broadcast because the concerts don't get broadcast, but it's pretty much the same thing. They're putting that footage up onto the Jumbotron or whatever. It's been amazing to see that loosen up a little bit. I'm not really set up for that. Those guys are flying like 100 gram, 120 gram setups. If I can get an into that world, I would love to do that. That looks like a blast, other than them getting hammered by lasers all the time and losing sensors. But yeah, seeing some of the work that Somatic Cinema is doing is just amazing, man. He used to hang out on our live streams all the time, and to see him like blowing up and doing such high level stuff has just been awesome. And he's been like such a good person to be doing that, because he's very safe and very mature, and that's who we need in those settings. We don't need, no offense to anybody that's 17 years old, but we don't need like the 17-year-old cowboy pilots doing that stuff. Like, sure, they might be a better pilot, but they don't have a brain for risk assessment at 17 years old. And so, they're going to go for the insane, super sketchy move or shot when that's not the answer. The answer is to not hit anyone and ruin it for the entire FPV community, because all it takes is one artist or athlete to get really hurt by one of these things, and yeah, it goes real bad for all of us. Where are we at here in Chad? Nyafu says, I trusted AliExpress with a motor order, and now I'm not gonna have it by the time I go on vacation. Was looking forward to flying my Mario 8 down mountains. Yeah, AliExpress and Banggood were never good at getting things to any of us at any in any realistic time frame. That sucks. Capital C says, one of my buddies flies drift and race events for Sonoma Raceway. I help him sometimes with 4 to 6 hours of battery management, swapping and charging, plus GoPro. Super fun, hard work. It is. That's exactly what it is. It is super fun, hard work. Oh god. Super low Brent from hyper low frames, I think, does a bunch of Monster Jam events, and he brought me on to do that for up in Tennessee, and Yeah, it's super fun. It's super fun. I was dying to fly. He was flying and Erod were flying, and it was hard to not fly, but it was super fun to watch them rip, and yeah, be on battery patrol. Total blast. CMYK says, I watched something where they said in total it was like 60 quads between the teams. Oh my god. Holy hell. That's, I wouldn't. Well, I mean, they also have a bunch of Inspires ripping around all over the place too. So, I mean, yeah, and in theory, they've got multiples. So, if it's 60, yeah, I can see that. They do a lot of stuff at a time, right? Like they're doing skiing at the same time that they're doing the incredibly awkward doubles luge. Is it luge? Yeah, doubles luge. Why? Why put two people on there? Just have one. The poor person on the bottom is just getting obliterated. They're not doing anything. They're just down there getting crushed. What is that about? FizzPV says, I love the stuff I saw. Oh, I was thinking of places too. Tiny Whoop bowling alleys. They do the blacklight bowling. Oh, yeah, that'd be super fun. Robert Cyrus says, yeah, to be at races as a chase car, in and out of the pits. Nice. Hey, look at that. CMYK says power bottom. All right, I'm all caught up. Let's get to work. Hey, Maxx Frames is in the chat. What's up, brother? Vegan's in here as well. What's up, dude? How are you? Let me make you an official moderator just so that you show up in blue. Don't do any moderating, though. We have tons of mods. I just want your name to show up in blue here. Which one do I want? Standard or manage also has the no, standard. Standard. There we go. All right, cool. I got you in blue, brother. All right, let's get to work. Power bottom. Perfect. So this is the Maxx Frames M2. I've talked about this quite a bit over the last week or two. Oh, hey, also, I keep forgetting to show this. Max also printed me out a couple things in PEBA. PEBA is similar to TPU, but stiffer. And it is quite a bit stiffer. It actually reminds me a lot of 98A TPU. And so yeah, shout out to Max for doing these. These are a couple of CO3 mounts. Unfortunately, these are the style of CO3 mount that's flat on the bottom, and I don't have any AIOs that don't have a UFL up front that these will really work with. But I'm super appreciative that he sent this over for me to check this PEBA out. Because yeah, I'm still relatively new to 3D printing. I've only been doing it for about a year, I guess. And I've only really run SaneSmart 95A TPU. So this is actually super helpful for me to get my hands on this and just squish it a little bit to see how stiff it is. I'd be interested to see how these would hold up. I might snag a roll of PEBA now that I've checked this out. I'm definitely going to get a roll of that Sunlu Silk 98A. And I think at the same time, I might grab some of this PEBA to see how it does. I don't, to be honest, I don't love how stiff this is. I think the flexibility of TPU is actually really nice, especially like for trying to get the camera in and out. And then in crashes, it's going to deform so it bends and doesn't break. But I would be very curious to print a Bri-Brain out of PEBA and see how it holds up, because I'm not having the best luck on like really, really, really hard crashes, even inside the house, with the Bri-Brains. But in fairness, this was this was absolutely full throttle, like full throttle for 20 or 30 feet, face first, like canopy first into a wall. Like it was almost like I did this on purpose. But if one of these other materials would survive something like that, then yeah. What I do need to figure out is how to put how to put, so we've got this little like sled looking thing that sits in the Modula 6 canopies and holds different cameras, Ant Light in this case. And I printed this little sled thing out of TPU, and that was way too flexible. And now I've got it printed out in PETG. And in PETG, it's cracking. The layers are separating. And so I wonder if the Sunlu Silk or this PEBA would be a better choice for this, because in theory it's going to be more stiff than the TPU, so the camera's not in there wobbling around, but not as brittle as this. The other issue I'm having with the PETG is that, like, screwing the screws into it, it's not holding its up tilt. So it's like when I crash, it's going to like 0 up tilt. So yeah, got to kind of figure that out. Gittybot says PEBA also weighs about 80%. Oh, that's cool. Save my butt on my latest bot. Some think it's more durable. I'll find out how tough it really is at a competition on Saturday. Nice. Let us know for sure. Burlak says those 1202.52 on a 2S 2.5 are a blast. Latest build has them on them, has serious giggle factor. Curious what to see you think of them. And then Maxx Frames says, what's up, brother? Here if you have any questions. Very cool. I do have a question. Hey, Max includes a bunch of 3D printed stuff when you buy his frame. And for the camera mounts, there are 2 different analog looking camera mounts. So you get a bunch of arm guards, arm protectors, which are awesome. And then you get a 04 light camera mount, which is great. And then you get 2 different antenna mounts, which are really cool. But then you get 2 round analog looking camera mounts. I have a feeling that this one I'm holding is for the Walksnail Light and or HD0 cameras. And then the one that I have on here right now, which is squared off in the back. See the back of the camera mount there? See how it's squared off? That squared offness, I believe, is for the squared offness of the back part of these cameras. Yeah, am I right? I bought the frame from his Instagram. If you go to MAXX_frames, I believe it is, he'll confirm. And there we go. He just confirmed. The one that's square in the back is for the CO3. The round one is for Walksnail and HD0. Look at me! I fingered it out. So let's get to it, man. I don't know if we'll be able to finish this build tonight. Nah, we won't. Not in 45 minutes. But we'll get as much as we can done here, and then I'll finish it off tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow's Maggie's birthday. Don't ask how old she is. So we're going to be hanging. I sure hope that the presents that I got for her arrive. I ordered them like a week and a half ago. I don't know what the hell's happening with shipping right now. It's pretty bad. I don't get it. Like, I'm ordering stuff and it's not showing up for like 2-3 weeks, which is really weird. So one of the only concerns that I had about this Maxx M2 frame is that it looks like the carbon fiber is not going the length of the arms. We talked about that already. The other thing that's just me kind of being bitchy, if I'm honest, is that the hardware that it comes with is not M1.5, it's M1.3. This has happened to me a bunch over the years with micro stuff. You can just swap it out. What I do like about the hardware that it comes with, though, and I think maybe the reason that he did this, is that they are button head, and they've got like big flat heads on them. And so they're very low profile. You know, like most M1.5 hardware has like either a round button. Well, here. It's either got a socket head like this, which is like big and tall, or it's got a big round button head. And so I have a feeling that he did this because the head on them is flat. But if you're going to do one of these M2 frames, make sure that you have a 1.3 millimeter driver for them. my experience with the M1.3 stuff, being somebody that tests a lot and takes stuff apart and puts it back together and takes it apart and puts it back together, is that it strips out a little bit easier. Also, I don't have a an M1.3 MIP driver. My MIP drivers are just 1.52 and 2.5, and so I have to use these WeHi drivers, which are fine, but they're not as good as the MIPs. And so yeah, just make sure you have a 1.3 mil driver, or just replace the hardware. It's the same thread. I can take, and I might, I can take regular old M1.5 hardware and just swap it out. And so it's actually, most of us have a bunch of extra M1.5 hardware floating around. I actually sell a bunch of it on my Etsy store if there's anything specific that you need. And so it's actually kind of nice that it comes with this different hardware. If you don't like it, swap it out and just hang on to it. And then if you have a super pressing use for like really low profile headed hardware, you've got it. And you didn't have to go out and order it. So it's kind of nice. Just, yeah, be advised that an M1.5 driver ain't gonna work. I might actually do that. I might actually put this aside and just keep it in case I need super low I won't need super low profile hardware for this particular build. It would be nice to use in the back here though, because the battery can sometimes cover, like, let's see. Matter of fact, so I am going to be running this on the 300 mAh 2S batteries. And so let's see. Oh no, I won't have that problem because he uses these really cool he uses this really cool battery holder setup that makes the battery sit up really high. All the other builds pull the battery down into the top plate, and so it can like overlay this back piece and sit up a little bit crooked. But yeah, he's using a really neat style of battery holder, and so you just slop it in there. This battery's getting a little banged up here. Hold on. Let me just fix this up real quick. Starting to crash these things, and so the shrink wrap on the batteries is getting banged up. There we go, all better. And so the battery just I might have to take this cloth wrap. I cloth wrap these because they kept moving around in the plastic tiny whoop frames. Well, there we go. Pushed it right past the cloth. Okay, so I need to move this one forward, and so all I got to do is that. And so yeah, look at that. That's pretty slick. See, and it comes nowhere near that rear piece. So yeah, I don't need that low profile hardware for this particular build, but I bet you it'll come in super handy at some point. All right. Yeah, really cool. Little TPU latches that you force. It was hard to get this front one through, but with a pair of pliers, I was able to get it. This rear one's easy. Rear one is easy. You put it in there sideways and then just rotate it, and it just pops right in. Very, very cool design. I like that a lot. All right, here we go. So, I already pretty much know. All right, so we're gonna use this JHEMCU all-in-one, which comes with a couple of antennas, a couple of rubber grommets. It does have motor plugs on it, which I'm tempted to just leave these. I'm not gonna use them because they're pointing downwards. And the motors that I'm putting on this are direct solder motors, which don't look like they have a PCB on the stator. So I'm going to direct solder these motors. This AIO does have the little crescent-shaped pockets on the outside, which is where I'm going to direct solder the motors to. And it looks like you have pretty good access to those even with the motor plugs still on. And this is getting built as an analog setup, and so I'll have plenty of deck height with these. I believe these are 15 millimeter standoffs. Yeah, those are 15 mil. So I could absolutely just like leave these on. There's going to be plenty of height. If I was going to do this as a digital build, I would absolutely remove them. But yeah, I don't know. I could maybe leave them. Let me take a look here. So if I do leave them, we've got a little gap here. And so they are going to hit. What I was going to check is if they're going to hit the... Oh, yeah. I definitely can't use them because they are obscured by the frame. So good thing we're not using them. Yeah, you wouldn't want to use them anyway, though, because then you'd have motor wires going straight out the bottom. It would just be a mess. It's not that difficult to remove them, but it puts a bunch of extra heat into the board, which you want to try to avoid if you can. Let me do this. I'm going to put one set of screws and spacers onto the base plate, and we're going to drop it down on the red grommets that they give you, and we're going to see. M2 by 12 is just about the perfect length. You can go with M2 by 14, but you don't usually need that extra length, and it's just more weight. Let's see if M2 by 12 will get the job done here. So we're going to put it up through the bottom, and then I'm going to grab one of these little 2mm M2 spacers. I think we'll do blue to go with the... what color is this? Is this teal? Would you call that teal? Light blue, maybe? With dark blue and light blue here. So I love these little M2 2mm spacers. I believe it's Newbie Drone that sells these. They're kind of expensive, but I mean, whatever. Here we go. So we've got these nice little red grommets that they give you. So let's see where this ends up. Hold on, put it on the wrong side. Height wise. All right, there we go. So that on there. All right, and I do have just enough screw, and yeah, that ain't gonna work. So the motor plugs are smashing right into the bottom plate, and so that means that we actually do want to remove these, because if you just keep putting the board up higher and higher and higher, it's going to become difficult to get a USB cord plugged into this USB port here. And I might actually end up flipping these grommets upside down so that the short part of the grommet is on the bottom to make sure that this is low enough. But I am going to pull these motor plugs off, and I'll show you guys how to do that, because there is a method that makes it a little bit easier. You want to have in your little arsenal of FPV tools spring-closed tweezers. These are, I got these from Amazon forever ago. They're really, really, really nice to have. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to clip these onto the motor plug, and then we're just going to hit the top three with heat, and then this is going to pull the plug right off of here. So let's get some flux on the top of these three pads. You can put a bigger chisel soldering iron tip on, but the regular one is probably going to be totally fine. This is going to be great because this is going to load the little pockets that we're going to use to solder the direct solder the motors to up with flux here. So like the whole area is going to get fluxed up, which is nice. And so you're not going to have the best view of this because, well, I'll switch to the other camera here. So this will give you guys a good view. There you are. And so I got that pulling down on the plug. And so all we're going to do is take the soldering iron out of the stand at 700 degrees Fahrenheit, clean the tip of the soldering iron. You always do that when you take it out of the stand. You never do that when you put it back in the stand. You want to put it in the stand dirty. And then we're just going to hit these three with heat. And I'm just basically like bouncing back and forth between them. And eventually it'll just fall right out the bottom. There it goes. Sometimes I'll have to add a little bit of extra solder. Yeah, I'm going to have to actually add solder here. It's kind of weird. But it's all good. All right, I'm going to do that with the... I'm going to do that to all 4 of these. By adding solder, it's going to transfer the heat better, and that's going to let it fall off the bottom. Where am I at? I'm over on this side? Yeah. All right, so we're going to put this into the OmniFixo real quick here. And we're just going to push a little bit of extra solder into this plug, to both of these plugs on this side. So soldering iron on one side. There we go. 1 pin, 2 pins, 3 pins. There we go. And then the one that we were just working on. 1, 2, 3. All right, now, well, let me do the other ones. The other ones on this side real quick. Okay. Hey. One, 2, 3. Doesn't matter if you bridge them together. It almost kind of helps if you bridge them together, to be honest. All right, there's those. And then let's get these. We got some components pretty close to this, so I got to be a little careful here. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Much better. By having more solder on there, it's going to transfer the heat a lot better. There was like very, very little solder on those pins. And so now we're going to do the exact same thing. I don't know which pads are which now. I fluxed maybe these. Let's try these ones. Shouldn't really matter now, but here we go. And let me try to get it at an angle. Yeah, this is the one that I was working on. So let's try to get it at an angle so I can hit all 3 at once. There we go. Kind of give it a little wiggle here. There it goes. It's always a shock when that happens because you don't want it to fall on your shirt with the hot pins. So let's angle it forward this time so that it falls a little bit safer. All right. Yeah, having the extra solder on there makes a huge difference. Look at that, Jesus. Checking to make sure it didn't touch anything important. Now we're good. Okay. Wait, no. Put it on the other way so it falls forward. There we go. Yeah, so I'm just putting it on so that the angle is like that, right? This is going to want to fall in that direction. Hopefully. Let's see. And I'm putting the soldering iron sideways. And I'm able to get all 3, even with the regular stock chisel tip. And last one. Okay. No big deal. So there we go. Now I do need to make sure that they're not bridged together. So let's just take a look. One of them is, 2 of them are, 2 of them aren't. All right. So I can actually just do this on the flat surface here. Super easy when pads bridge together. You're going to get a little bit of flux on there. And then you're just going to heat it up and you're going to flick the soldering iron out away from the board. And so we got a little bit of flux there. We're just going to take the clean soldering iron tip. Solder always travels towards the heat. And so by doing this with a totally clean soldering iron tip, you're actually going to pick up some of this solder, which is what we want because we got too much on there. That's why it's bridging. So we're going to hit all 3 pads, wait for it to go liquid, and just flick outwards. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Now I'm going to rotate the tip around to the clean side and do the same thing. Heat all 3 up, flick outwards, and now I got 2 more to do, but I am going to clean the tip of the soldering iron. I'm just going to do all 4. I can see that there's already a bunch of flux on this one. There's already a bunch of flux on that one, so I don't need to add flux to either one of those. But I am going to clean the tip of the soldering iron so that there's no extra solder on there. That way we take away as much solder as we can from these pads that we're not using anymore. Heat up all 3. Flick outwards. Heat up all 3. This is the one that's bridged. Flick outwards. And now we're good to go. Cool. Straightforward stuff, but if nobody shows you how to do it, you won't know how to do it. All right, so now this thing is going to sit totally flat. We're going to have no problems with clearance. And so, what should we do next? Let's get the rest of the hardware thrown into this thing. So, where are those sharp tip tweezers at? There we go. This will work. I'm gonna grab 3 more of these little blue 1mm spacers. Okay, and then we're gonna grab 3 more M2 by 12 screws here. 1. We got 2. All right, now 2 of these don't look the same. I can't have that. So I'm gonna go digging to find the exact same ones. That one looks like these 2. Come on, give me one more. Give me one more that matches. Oh yeah. Nope, that one looks a little different. Just talk amongst yourselves. Hold on, I'm gonna be crazy for a minute. Just let me be crazy. Ooh, I'm running out of these. Why do I have a ton of conical M2 by 12s? I wish I had a little what's it called, an awl? The thing that'll make a regular hole into a conical hole. I could conical these bitch. Well, I could just do it with a big. I'm gonna use some of these conicals, yo. And then they'll sit totally flat. That'll be fun. Yeah, I gotta start using these. Hold on. I could do this with a drill bit real quick. Hold up. This will be fun. For me, you won't get to see anything. Well, wait, can I do it with this drill bit? Is this one big enough? Oh shit. This one's just barely big enough. Let me see if I can do it by hand. Hold on. You shouldn't do this without wearing a mask. But I am really taking just the slightest little bit of material out of here. Let's see. Let's see how good of a job that did. Oh! That's just right. Yeah, I could totally do this by hand. Hold on. This is the drill bit. This is a 9/64. I don't know. This is the drill bit that we use to open up the bottom of the Cockroach V3 frames and the Light AF frames when we want to use the Happy Model motors with those giant C-clips on the bottom of them. And I'm just making a tiny little angle. I'm not like totally countersinking this. I'm just making a little bit of an angle so that the countersunk hardware will sit down a little bit. And it's such like a small little hole that like it takes very little to do this. So yeah, I'm on my 3rd one. Hold on one more second. Move into the 4th one. All right. Last one here. There we go. All right, cool. Wipe these down a little bit. You don't want to breathe carbon fiber in. It's if you think of how itchy it is when you get it on your fingertips, imagine getting it in your lungs. How itchy your lungs will get, and it just never leaves. Is there forever. Yeah, I just gave it like a little tiny hit, And now, let's see how these guys will sit on there. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Tiny little gap down there. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. All right, so the question is, why do I have so much of this? Why do I have so many M2 by 12 conical-headed screws? It's very specific. I wonder what they're... They must be coming with something. This entire, not this entire, but the majority of this little hardware kit is hardware that came with stuff. It's hardware that came with flight controllers and motors, and like I have a couple of times had to order, usually like the longer lengths, but typically I don't. B. Kirk says, what about threaded metal inserts into the 3D prints? That the 3D prints are so small that it wouldn't have enough room for them. Max says, try it on HV 450/550. Really good throw, much better runtime. I have a bunch of the 450s. But man, that's gonna be an awful lot of runtime. The little 2S300s are just perfect. They just give me that like 3 minutes. It's just right. On the 2.5-inch builds, I might go up to the 450s, but we'll see. A lot on the baby turtle frames. The 450 mAh batteries won't fit on the top plates. It would probably fit on the Bando turtle, but on the V7 and on the Pro, the 300s are absolutely perfect, which is great because it gives me the exact right amount of runtime that I want. It gives me like exactly 3 minutes, or maybe a little bit more. Okay. Almost ready. And there we go. Max also says TPU bits are printed in SainSmart Neon Cyan. Nice. So it's neon. This is neon cyan. I didn't know that color existed. It's one of the opaque colors. I use the... I'm such a sucker for the translucent SainSmart TPUs. The red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet is what I've got. All right, cool. So we got our mounting hardware. I'm using the shortest mounting hardware that I can. I might be able to go 2 millimeters shorter than this, but there's no reason to be that crazy. I'm going to put these grommets on upside down so that the tall part of the grommet is on top, because I want to try to drop this a little bit lower to make it a little bit easier to plug a USB into it, a USB plug into the bottom. And so I always just do 2 first, just to see what's what. And then, yeah, that looks good. Plenty of room. Cool. And we've also got plenty of room for these wires to exit downwards. When we solder these motor wires on, we're going to solder them in the downward direction. So you wouldn't want to slam this super close to the deck, because then those wires are going to point right into the carbon fiber. You don't want that. So this is looking good. Next up, we can do... Well, hold on. Let's throw the other 2 on. Let's just leave it like this. So let's handle the battery lead first. I've got a little piece of 20 gauge wire here. It should be a little bit long. So where are the battery pads on here? They are right there. All right, so battery leads are going to hook into that. And then with our top plate on, he's got a cool little provision for XT30. We're going to be using BT 2.0. I'm actually going to reverse this, so it's on the same side. All right, so we need it to come up and then go... I'm not sure. Let's see. if I put this battery in like that, what happens to the battery cable? Goes out and around. Okay, so we're not going to do it in that direction. We're going to put it through the other way. So, okay, we'll put it like that, and then it'll double back over itself. Okay, cool. All right, so battery's going to sit in there like this. This wire is going to come back like this, and it's going to plug in there. So I can do this battery lead really, really short. Let me make sure that's going to work. If that's in there, yeah, totally. Okay, that's pretty slick, actually. So the battery lead is going to come straight up and then just go right in there, so it can be incredibly short. We're going BT 3.0 on this. And so what that means is when this top plate is here, rotate this around. And so the battery pads are right there. Boy, this can be absurdly short. I'm going to make it a little bit longer because the wire is going to go up and take a little 180 degree, but just for the sake of argument, I don't need two. I just need the one. So there. And then we want to have enough extra room. So it goes like that. Okay, so that's the farthest one away. And then I'm holding it up top here. And I'm pushing forward for a little bit of extra room. So we want it roughly that long. And then I'll give it just a little bit extra. And so now let's see where that puts us. So farther one away, up there. Yeah, perfect. All right, so this is the right length. When this battery is in here, I don't necessarily want to be twisting this up. And so it's going to be round part of the lead in that direction. And I'm going to use one of the straight BT 3.0s. And so rounded part going that way. And it's this piece that's going to sit in there. And so positive is going to be on the top. So positive is going to be a little bit longer and very cool. The positive is the slightly closer one. So that'll be great. The wires won't twist over each other. Sweet. So this is just the right length. I'm going to make both of these the exact same length and we should be fine. So let's get this clipped here. Probably don't need to use 20 gauge. I could probably get away with 22 gauge, but it's only the slightest bit heavier. So we'll be fine. All right, we're going to do the BT 2.0 lead first. And then we'll solder it to the board. The pre-made BT 2.0 leads have a 90-degree angle that would be going the wrong direction. It would either go into the battery or out away from the battery, and that's just silly. That's just asking for trouble. When you solder up XT30s or BT 2.0 or BT 3.0, put the opposite side on. Don't solder it up like this. These pins will move. You're going to put a bunch of heat into these pins and they're going to soften this plastic up. Take the other side of the connector and put it in there. This is super important. Right? And it also is going to act like a heat sink. So set it up like that. Also, don't use two black wires. This is a stupid idea, but I don't have any red 20 gauge, unbelievably. All right, and so we're soldering to this side. We don't care about that balance pin. We're going to make sure that these two guys have the flat spots going outwards. They do. We will tin this guy first, and then we'll tin the wires, and then we'll connect them. So we're going to tin the inside of this and then the inside of that. So get some flux on there. And real quick, just get some solder on here. All right, good deal. That one as well. Okay. The one side picked up a little bit more than the other. Let me just... Yeah, it's better. All right, good. All right, now we got these wires. The safest way to strip these itty-bitty wires is just to use your fingernails, actually. Your fingernails will not nick or cut any of the inner strands of wire. There we go. After you do that, just push the silicone back a little bit. You always pull the silicone out. You don't want that. Just push it back a little bit. And you can even give these guys a little twist if you cranked it and they're starting to flatten out. All right, we got one. Alternatively, you can use flush cutters if you've done it a million times, but it's much more sketchy to do this. If you're going to use the flush cutters, just dent the silicone with them. Don't try to cut through the silicone. Just dent it and then use them like as pliers basically to pull out on it. Don't try to cut through the silicone because then you'll put the sharp metal against these tiny little strands of wire and you can easily cut them or nick them. If you nick them, you might as well have just cut them because the first time that it bends, they're going to break right off. OmniFixo is super slick. The jaws open totally flat so you can put multiple wires in them at a time. Really, really nice. And now we are just going to tin these wires. With these bigger wires, I actually love putting a little bit of flux on them. It's going to keep it nice and clean, and it's going to tin a lot better. So throw a blob of flux on there. It's also going to prevent the solder from chasing down the wire, which you don't want. And you want to do this as quick as possible because, again, you want as little solder to go down the silicone as possible. So get it into a position that's comfortable so that you're not stuck with the tip of the soldering iron fucking around. And get in and get out. So we're going to tin the tip of the iron. Do the far one first. Hit it. Good to go. Bring the blob of fresh solder up and then push the solder in between the strands. You're trying to get the solder in between the strands of wire into the middle of the little bundle of wires there. Ah, nice. Maxx has a BT 3.0 version of the rear battery holder up on Thingiverse. I've been using the XT30 ones. The BT 2.0s fit totally fine in here. They don't fit tight in there, but like they fit fine. And the BT 3.0 has like the little 45-degree angles, just like the BT 3.0. It's like, it's good to go. And it moves around a little bit, but I almost like that it moves around. Because if you need to get it out of there, it's super easy to get out. OmniFixo, again, just genius. The little magnet and ball setup, it stays exactly where you put it, unlike normal helping hands where you put it where you want it and then it like moves away. So I can get this just right, exactly where I want it on here. So it's like perfectly lined up. And all I got to do is push it inwards. Move the work to you. Actually gonna twist this down like this so I can bring the soldering iron in the downward direction. There we go. Tweezers in my left hand to control the wire, and then I can bring the tip of the soldering iron in like that. All right, bring that down, grab this. And again, as quick as you possibly can. The less time you spend on this, the more malleable the wire is going to be right next to it. And so get control of it. The wire. Let the heat transfer. And there we go. That looks pretty good. A little bit of an angle on it that I don't love. Let me just hit it one more time. I hate to have to hit this again, but I should have put flux on. That was stupid. Okay. Hey, that was unexpected. Let's point that down a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay. This might just pop off as soon as I hit this. Let's see what happens. Oh, there we go. There it is. That's what I wanted. All right, there's one. Flip these back the other direction. We'll do the other one. All right, so got this wire here. Might as well release this one. All right, cool. Move the work to me. Not me around the work. And yeah, that looks good. Get my head into position where I can actually see what's about to happen. Should have fluxed it. That looks pretty good. Let's check it. Yeah, that's all right. This one could move forward a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna rework this one and just move it forward a little bit. How is this sitting in there? Where's the angle? The angle part is gonna sit like that, and so I want these to bend down. Okay, and you can already see that the solder is starting to go up the wire. Hate when it does that, but there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Like, you can be as quick as possible. Like, if I hadn't had to rework it, it would be a little bit better than this, but not by that much. Yeah, this one ain't quite right. I gotta get that one moved forward. I'm just gonna grab this by hand. Burn myself a little bit, but it'll be fine. I'm gonna get flux on it this time though. Using the tweezers is great, but like when you do this by hand, you can feel, like, I like to push the wire forward till the silicone hits the PCB, or in this case the pin. And with the tweezers I can't feel that, and so I should have done this by hand. This time I will. Push it forward. Much better. Much, 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 much better. I should have done that by hand in the first place. I'm going to hit the other one again real quick, like, just because that top one's so much better now. Okay. So... go. Now we're talking. That's the ticket. I should have done it by hand. That was silly. It's tempting to like use the OmniFixo for everything because it is so nice, but all right, take these, just put a little bit of a bend in here. Yep. All right, that's looking pretty good. And now we're going to throw some shrink wrap over these guys because they are live when there's a battery hooked up. Danzilla says, when is your dad coming back to show us how to actually solder well? A year from December, probably. We're going to visit. Oh, no, actually, I think they're stopping in on their way back, on their way home. But that won't be for a couple more months. All right, here we go. Let's get a little bit of shrimp wrap on there. That's probably too small. This is probably the right size. Sometimes I'll do clear so that I can like see the joint, see if it's starting to break. That's too big though, isn't it? Let's see. Hey. Oh yeah. Yeah. There we go. All right, let's use clear. That'll be fun. Okay, a little piece. A little piece. Throw these down here. Yeah, if all of a sudden you're not getting voltage to the quad, if these are clear, you can see if it broke in there. A lot of times I forget to do that, but every once in a while I remember. All right. There we go. And then I'll do one more big piece of shrink wrap around this whole thing, which helps get a little bit of grip. Actually, no, I won't, because this is going to be inside of that. This is going to be inside of that TPU, and it probably wouldn't fit in there. So there we go. That looks pretty clean. And again, this is going to sit up in here. So now we can pull the opposite end out. And so this is going to sit up in here like that. Yeah, like I said, it fits in the XT30 pretty good. Like it's, because it's a different shape, you got to like force it in there, which is kind of what you want. There it is. See, it sits in there really nice. Like it's obviously not quite the right shape, but it's close enough. And so that's going to chill in there, and then these are going to bend down and then hook up to the AIO. Sweet. All right. That's next. Let's get this AIO here. And so the two holes are there. You know what? This wire is going to be too thick, isn't it? Let's see. I should have maybe gone with 22 gauge so that this would go through the... I should have at least checked with 20 gauge to see if this would go through the through holes in the AIO, but you never know. Maybe they made them just big enough. Come on, JHEMCU. Please have made them big enough for 20 gauge. Let's see. Doesn't look like it. Oh, shit, they did. Oh, just barely. There we go. Cool. All right. So if you're going to use through holes, it's very tempting to not tin these, because when you tin them, it adds a little bit of width. You should tin these, though. Just tin them super, super lightly. There we go. All right, so I'm definitely gonna twist these up because I need these to stay as tight as possible to get through those through holes in the AIO. So make absolutely sure you're getting these as round as possible. All right, that looks pretty good. And this one looks good as well. All right, cool. So we'll tin these real quick, and then we're actually going to tin the board as well. I am going to use flux again because I want to transfer the heat as quickly as I possibly can to get as little solder on these as possible. All right, let's do it. So we're going to put the soldering iron on the bottom of the wire, and then we're going to push solder through the top. Here we go. Bottom. Push through the top just a little bit. Bottom. Top just a little bit. If there's ever a time that you don't add quite enough solder, it should be like right now when you're trying to make sure that these will go through the through holes. You're going to dump a bunch of solder in there, and it's going to kind of like tin itself while you're dumping solder into the board, but still, it's hard to get the solder to the core of these multi-stranded wires. And so now we have to make sure that we don't hook up positive to negative and negative to positive, but let's tin these pads first. And again, you're going to be tempted to not tin these pads. That is one way of doing it. It is a little bit better to tin them, though. The best way to do it would be to tin them and then solder wick them. But I'm going to show you how to... That's an extra step. I'm going to show you how to do it a little quicker. So we're just going to tin this pad. This is the ground pad, so it's going to take a little bit more heat. But we got it. There's the voltage pad, and now we're going to flip this thing. We're going to have to flip this thing on its side anyway. So we're going to flip it on its side so that we can get to the bottom of the pads. And we're going to make sure that they're tinned as well. And they're not quite, they're very close. They have a bubble of solder coming through, but the pad itself on the bottom didn't get hot enough. So I'm just going to hit this again with heat. And I'm just going to move the tip of the soldering iron around the bottom of the pad. And that'll spread the solder to the, so that we don't see any of the gold or copper of the pad. And now you want to check it. And I didn't quite get enough on the ground. Let's hit it one more time real quick. Hit it here, move it around. Now we got it. Now we got the whole pad covered. Cool. So we want the wires to go out this direction. What I like to do is have the board vertical like this, and so now I can bring the tip of the soldering iron here, and then I move my head over to the left, and I can see what I'm doing, and I'll feed the wires in from this side. And so we've got ground by the grommet, and then positive towards me. So we're going to look on here, and we've got positive is here, ground is here. So ground by the grommet. We're going to do that one first because it's farther away. Clean the tip of the iron. And so now everything is tinned, so we don't have to try to add solder. If you try to do this without tinning the board or without tinning the wire, you have to get the wire in place and then add solder. I've certainly done that quite a few times, and it does work, but I do kind of like this method better. And so I can see what I'm doing. Since this pad is on the edge of the board, I can just bring the tip of the soldering iron in, and then it's just going to melt, and I'll see it melt on the front, and that's when I know I can feed the wire in. All right, it's not melting quick enough. Let's get a little bit of flux on there. Get a little bit on both. All right, clean it one more time. I'm actually also going to tin the tip of the iron. That'll make sure that it transfers heat nice and quick. All right, just a little bit. The smoke means that there's still flux. And there we go. I can see it go liquid. Not yet, not yet, not yet. Come on. There it goes. All right, so now I'm having a problem because the tinned wire is a little bit too big. And so to fit through the through hole. So what I'm going to do is put it flat here and hit the tip of the iron, hit the tip of the wire and just pull outwards. I'm trying to remove a little bit of the solder on the wire with the clean soldering iron tip. All right, and so now let's try that. All right, it just went liquid. We're going to feed it through here. There it goes, right? 3, 2, 1. Ah, farts. Come on. All right, and now you got to be careful when you're pushing that through. If you feel one of the little strands of the multi-stranded wire fighting you, you gotta stop and you gotta flatten it back out. This is the problem with doing this. This is why I wish I'd used 22 gauge, not 20 gauge. But we're gonna give it one more try. Okay, just trying to get it as round as possible. Make sure all the little strands are facing straight forward. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, let's try one more time. Harper says, what size capacitor are you using on a 2S build, or is it not needed on 2S builds? It's not needed unless it is. If you do the build and you've got like, you can't get you've got electrical noise basically, then you can go to a capacitor. But I like to do these builds no capacitor first, and then if I need it, I'll add it. It depends on how much capacitance is already on the flight controller itself. And so like the really cheap, shitty flight controllers, a lot of times will not have enough capacitors on them. And you have sometimes you'll have to add an external capacitor. It sucks because they're hard to find a spot for on these little itty bitty builds. But it's either that or the thing's never going to fly right. All right, let's try this again. Be as gentle as I can. All right, here we go. Go through, you jerk. Go through. There it goes. That's the one. Cool. And so now you got to really check for any little rogue strands of wire. And there is just one. So we're going to cut that guy off. Pull him out of there. And then look for the rest. This is where a 5X loop is really handy because one little rogue strand of wire bridging between these pads is going to blow up a perfectly good AIO. But in this case, we're fine. And they actually put a nice gap in between these pads. Good job, JHEMCU. Yeah, they put a nice gap. A lot of the AIOs will put these pads like right next to each other, and it's so stupid. Also, I would not be able to do this work without these 3.5X head-mounted nerd goggles. Good God, it's fucking past midnight already. Doing builds right takes time. All right, let's get the positive pad. This will be much easier because it's not connected to the entire ground plane. And so here we go. There we are. Let me just, I want to push this a little bit farther in there. Just one more time. Really want to get the silicone all the way up against the AIO itself. And this negative pad is actually kind of going inwards a little bit. I don't want that. I want it going outwards, if anything. There we go. And now I just transferred a little bit too much solder onto that pad, but that's okay. We just grab our solder wick real quick. And I just want to take off the tiniest little bit of solder. So, super quick. Solder wick. Didn't mean for that to rhyme. We're just going to throw this on here. And that's it. Oh boy, it just welded itself to the to the pad. Hold on. flux will get that back off. Come on, no. Get off of there. Stop pulling solder out of there, you jackass. All right, hold on. That pulled more solder off of that than I wanted. I could have probably just done that with the tip of the soldering iron and just flicked it outwards, but I try not to do that too much, because if you got a little solder ball, it can go bouncing around. Oh, that actually looks all right. It did take some solder out of there. Let's just hit it one last time, super quick. Yeah, there we go. Pick up a little solder with that. Just touch this down here. Let it transfer the heat already there, all the way. Yeah, there we go. That's the stuff. Cool. There are 2 capacitors right next to this pad. In theory, they are hooked up to the ground pad. But I don't want to find that out the hard way. And so, take a look real close. Make sure it's not touching that pad. Or that capacitor. Now we're good. We got a little gap there. Cool. Now let's see if it blows up. Pull one of these BT 2.0 batteries off of here and pray for no smoke. No smoke. We got flashing lights. All's right with the world. Cool. Maxx Frames says, for analog AIO builds, I usually T7000 the capacitor to the top of the AIO. That's not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea. If this thing is electrically noisy, I'll be forced to kind of do that, but hopefully it's not. I think this one wire. All right, so let's see. Let's see how good this thing is going to sit in here with the top plate on. I'm pretty picky about how these battery leads run, because I've chopped so many battery leads over the years. I always like to make sure that they have the shortest run possible to keep them out of the propellers. And so with this thing in here, let's see. So that's where that's going to live. Yeah. That. Oh man, the one lead is almost too short. Jesus. I didn't realize the positive lead would have to go. See, that's kind of a mess. I didn't realize the positive lead was going to have to go that much extra distance here. I guess I can, if I push this in a little bit farther. And like, keep in mind, the board's not totally mounted. It could be fine once I actually have screws in it, but this is pretty close to being where it's going to live. All right, so that's there. I don't know. I might shorten up that ground wire a little bit. We'll see. I wish there was a BT 3.0 where it had a 90-degree angle going either that way or this way. There was only the one with the 90-degree angle going out. This is fine. Yeah, I wish I'd made that ground one just a little shorter. It would just sit in there a little bit flatter, but this is fine. All right, I think we might leave it there. At this point, motors get dropped down, cut the leads just the right length. Let me show you how to do that. For motors with a motor shaft that kind of sticks out on the bottom, you can just push it down into where it lives, and then it's not gonna move, right? I'm side loading this and it's not going anywhere. And then so pull it away so that it's far this way, and then just put a finger down on the motor wires, and then run the motor wires up to the pads, and give yourself a little bit extra, and then just chop them right there. And that's how you get pretty much the perfect motor length. So I'm going to do that 4 times, throw a couple of screws in, plug a few antennas, away we go. Also, I'm going to have to solder up the camera. I got to figure out where the camera pads are on here. Looks like they're going to be in the back somewhere. Hopefully they're not on the bottom. They better not be on the bottom. Are they on the bottom? Don't be on the bottom. They're not on the bottom. Where's the camera pad? We've got ground, 5-volt LED, SDA, SCL. I've got a tiny little RX2 pad here. T4, R4. Oh, there it is. Camera pads right there. So yeah, camera pads right there, then ground and 5 volts. So we're going to use those. Hopefully the camera wires are going to be long enough. Those pads are off on the side. Oh yeah, we're good. Yeah, that'll easily make it. So camera pads will be off on the side here. Motor, 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 motor. Antenna, antenna. Yeah, no sweat. The what is this? The VTX UFL is roughly where it is on the X12, which is sort of up front. Let's see if this antenna that they include is going to be long enough. So when that's plugged in there, I've been having a hard time. Yeah, it's not long enough. I've been having a hard time with these whip antennas being too short. I actually ruined a whip antenna today. I don't have a whip antenna that's long enough for this. I'm gonna have to dig around a little bit. I don't know what antenna I'm gonna run on here. ORT micro V is not gonna be long enough. I wish they put this VTX pad towards the back. The ELRS UFL, not pad, UFL. The ELRS UFL is on the back here. I wish this VTX was on the back on that side, maybe. This is one of my ORT micro Vs, and it's not long enough. So yeah, I'm gonna have to dig around and try to find a long whip antenna for this. I would have had one, but I accidentally ripped the UFL end off of it earlier. There you go. That's like the kind of boring but time-consuming part of the build that, in my opinion, you should spend a little bit extra time on, because like the battery leads being just right really does help, because boy is it easy for them to get hung up in the motors, and then if you chop a battery lead you might never get it back, and that sucks. So there you go, friends. There's the Maxx M2 frame. This will be up in the air, and I'll hopefully get some flight footage for you by Friday, because tomorrow I'm just going to be kind of chilling here. Hey, if anybody has a Caddx Ant Lite, I've got this Caddx Ant Lite that I have direct soldered a JST 1.0, the smaller JST plug. This is the JST plug for the 2G4 or the X12, and then I soldered on this little guy. This lens is wrecked, and you can't buy these Caddx Ant Lite lenses anymore. So if any of you have a Caddx Ant Lite, and you want this, I'll send this to you for the price of shipping, and then you've got an extra body. This lens is worthless, but you've got an extra body. Or if anybody has an extra Caddx Ant Lite lens, I would love to buy that from you and use this guy again. But yeah, this lens is just wrecked. The coating, they put a coating on the lens, it got all jacked up and it's scratched to hell and it looks terrible. So yeah, if anybody wants an extra Caddx Ant Lite body, let me know. Or if anybody has an extra lens, let me know. Does that make sense? Last comment of the live stream, Maxx Frames says the DJI 04 Lite antenna should be long enough. That's what I just ruined. I had a couple extras of those, and I've been using them, but I had my last one, and I got it stuck, and I yanked on it a little bit too hard, and it ripped the damn UFL right off of it. I could, of course, direct solder it, but what an effing nightmare that is. So yeah, I don't have any extras of those damn whip antennas. It's so nice that they come with them. I converted a bunch of them into ultralight antennas for to sell on my Etsy store, and now I wish I hadn't, because I don't want to use those ultralight antennas on builds like this. I've been meaning to do a little antenna order, and you know, I got to do an order for some of these motors anyway, so I'll probably snag a couple extra antennas from Pyrodrone or wherever I end up ordering from, because yeah, I don't think I have any more. Here's my 304 air unit boxes. I don't think I have any extras in these. Nope. None in there. Please be one in here. Please be one in here. Please. Nope. Come on, one more. One more chance. It's not gonna be in here. I know I take him out. Get in there. Get. There we go. Last chance. Come on. Come on. There might be one. You never know. You bastard. Nope. Oh well. I'll figure it out. Thanks for hanging, friends. Sorry we didn't get more done, but you guys had a lot of really good questions, and you know, helping you with your questions is the best thing that I can do for everyone, because if one of you has the question, 10 of you have it. CiottiFPV.com to support me. I do not monetize these live streams so that you don't have to watch commercials. So hook a brother up with $3 a month on Patreon, and I'll never monetize these streams. How's that sound? Down with paid subscription services. One of these days I will get YouTube Premium so I don't have to watch commercials anymore, but it just feels so wrong. It just feels so wrong. Be good, What are you growling at? What is your face all dirty for? What did you get into? Dog. Why are you so dirty? Buddy. Teddy. What are you looking at? What's over there? Oh. What are you growling at? Oh. Time for a stretch. German butt lift. GBL dog. Oh! Look at him. He's woofing. What are you woofing about? What? All right, friends. I'll see you on Friday. Be good. Here's some more 2.5 inch baby turtling. Turtle head coming at you. Here's with the 450 mAh battery. They're just running forever. Wait. Do I have a battery a little bit earlier in the day? Where it's a little bit lighter out? Yeah, here you go. Oh wait, this is when I had no power though. Yeah, no, this is no fun. Here, guys, go. Here's the end of the flight footage that didn't play in the intro. Love you, bye!
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams, yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Bit fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place, yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style.
Teddy's on pause, side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch, scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pub lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Yo, Shotty behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle mic. They on the dog drone streets every day and night.
Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive, Teddy.
Push throttle up, feel the beast come alive.
I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy.
Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the road.